and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven.
What's the best way to view this, Amber? A lot of people, look, we've joked about 2020 being the worst year ever, the longest year ever, and we need a little hope, and maybe some of these celestial beings can give us some hope. What's the best way?
A year that many of us would like to forget. There's a bright spot, literally. One spectacularly rare Christmas star is about to light up the sky on the first day of winter. Could it be the Star of Bethlehem?
God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years.
This is an Omega Watchman Media Group production.
And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars. And upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. And I will show wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before that great and notable day of the Lord come. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord come.
A year that many of us would like to forget. There's a bright spot, literally. One spectacularly rare Christmas star is about to light up the sky on the first day of winter. Could it be the Star of Bethlehem? Jennifer Brindisi finds out.
The brightest lights in the heaven shines on the first night of the winter solstice this year, and it's bringing a sense of wonder and awe right before Christmas. It's not happened since 1626 and not been seen since the year 1226. We talked with expert Kurt Spivey from YSU, who explains it as Jupiter and Saturn coming super close together, appearing as a single bright star December 21st.
The people of the Middle East did not follow the planets and stuff like the people from the Far East did. So most scholars that you will talk to as far as astronomy goes do think it was probably a planetary conjunction that happened around, I think it was around 4 AD.
Regardless of whether you believe it's the Star of Bethlehem, which the Bible mentions, it is undoubtedly going to be quite the sight.
This is a terrific thing to look at with binoculars as well. And if it is cloudy on the 21st, they're going to be getting closer and closer and closer together over the next 3 weeks, and they'll still be really close together for a few weeks after that. So if you don't get them right at the close approach, try it on either side when you get some clear skies. It's still going to be a spectacular show.
An astrophysicist at NASA. Amber, talking about the Christmas star, and I know you guys work with calendars, you work with, like you said, this happens ever so often, but the special moment is still here, and the hope that it provides. And you know, I don't know if you want to dive into the hope that it provides. You mentioned how bad 2020 has been for a lot of us. But there is a hope that we have something that is called the Bethlehem star, or the Christmas star that's right in front of us.
The story of the three wise men who followed the star of Bethlehem to find the baby Jesus is an enduring part of the Christmas story. And it turns out there's a historical and scientific evidence of a special star at a time and place that aligns with accounts in the Bible. As KGUN 9 on your sides, Craig Smith reports astronomers think it wasn't truly a star, but something else that would have caught the attention of the wise men of the time.
When the Bible says Jesus was born as Mary and Joseph traveled to Bethlehem to register with the Roman government, historical records independent of the Bible show that was by order of Caesar Augustus in the year 3 BC. The Magi are believed to be learned priests of an ancient Persian religion that made precise studies of the night sky. Michael McGee is the director of U of A's Flandreau Planetarium. He says many cultures that study the skies saw something unusual about that time.
There are Chinese writings, there are Arab writings of the day that all contribute to the history of what was going on, and researchers have lots of material to look over to confirm it all.
We celebrate Christmas in the winter because the early church decided to turn a pagan winter festival into a Christian observance. Ancient records actually mention a bright star in the east in August of 3 BC. But what did they really see? Records do not describe something that looked like a comet. They also do not describe something like a supernova, an exploding star. What we know as planets, the ancients called wandering stars because they moved through the night sky.
You could say, well, there was a bright planet, like we've seen the planet Venus both in the evening and the morning. At times it's very, very bright. That could easily have been what the bright star was. Problem is, they knew all about Venus. They knew when it came up in the morning and it came up in the evening. They knew that very well. So that wasn't anything new.
McGee says records show around the time of Caesar Augustus' order, the big bright planet Jupiter lined up 3 times with the star Regulus, which ancients called the King Star. Ancient sky watchers would see that as a message, but modern astronomers say even that was probably not what became the Star of Bethlehem.
And Venus, meantime, had circled around the sun and started coming up in the western sky. And it caught up with Jupiter, and then on roughly June 20th of that following year, I believe it was 2 BC, Venus and Jupiter came in such close conjunction that you couldn't tell that there were 2 planets there anymore.
To the ancients, 2 bright planets combined would have been a real beacon in the skies and the leading candidate for what Christmas tradition now calls the Star of Bethlehem.
The planets Jupiter and Venus coming together for a close conjunction. They'll be about 1/3 of a degree apart, so close together that they'll almost look like one big bright star to the naked eye, very close to the star Regulus. And some are calling this the Star of Bethlehem conjunction because something very similar happened in the night sky around 2-3 BC that some in history have postulated as possibly being the Star of Bethlehem. Regardless, it's going to be a beautiful sight, weather permitting, and right now there will be a chance of a few clouds in the sky with some downpours popping up earlier in the day, but if they pop up early enough, we think the clouds might clear out for this to cooperate here in Houston. And what you'll want to do is look to the west. This is about what it'll look like an hour after sunset. You don't want to get out too late because these stars will eventually set below the horizon just like the sun does. So anytime between 8:30, 9:30 at night, head on out, look to the west, and maybe you'll see that beautiful conjunction between Jupiter.
Have you heard about this? The Christmas star is coming? Is it fact or fiction? Well, let's talk about this. It's going to be a cool sight, but I don't know if we can call it a Christmas star. All right. What's going to happen here is on the southwestern horizon, you're going to see Saturn. But what's very interesting this year is the planet Jupiter will come very, very close. So it's going to look like the 2 planets as they come together, like a very bright star. So here's the facts. It's not really a star at all. But astronomers call this a conjunction when the planets come close together. And this is the closest that they're going to be since the year 1226, so 800 years in the making. It'll occur in the southwestern sky the evening of December 21st.
What are you doing on December 21st? Because the Christmas star, as it's called, will be appearing in our sky. To help me kind of break this down, explain why it's happening, explain how you can watch it the best, We've got an astrophysicist from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. She's the deputy project scientist for the James Webb Space Telescope. My friend, Amber Strawn. Dr. Strawn, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, Amber, we're talking about 800 years ago. That was 1226, the last time this happened. The Christmas star. Explain to us what's happening, why it's happening, and how it's happening.
Yeah, so what's happening basically is our two biggest planets in the solar system, Jupiter and Saturn, are going to be lined up really, really close in the sky as we view it here on Earth. And yeah, like you said, closer than has happened in almost 800 years. It's going to be remarkable.
What were you doing back in 1226? How did we know that the Christmas star was around in 1226?
Well, I wasn't around. I don't think any of your viewers were around. But the thing is that the solar system works like clockwork. And so we can track how the planets move in the sky. And from that, we can sort of run the clock backward, as it were, and figure out how long ago the planets were lined up like this. And so really to understand what's going on here, you can sort of imagine yourself getting in a little spaceship and going up above the solar system so that you're viewing the solar system from above. So from that vantage point, of course, you have the sun, the Earth, and then the outer planets. And all the planets orbit the sun at a different speed. And so at any one time, you have the Earth here, maybe Jupiter's here, and Saturn's over here. So from our vantage point, they may be really far apart in the sky. What's happening later this month is you have the Earth and Jupiter and Saturn all lined up in a straight line. And so now get back in your spaceship, come back to Earth. When we look out towards the horizon this year, Jupiter and Saturn are going to be super, super, super close together. It's going to be spectacular.
What's the best way to view this, Amber? A lot of people, look, we've joked about 2020 being the worst year ever, the longest year ever, and we need a little hope, and maybe some of these celestial beings can give us some hope. What's the best way for us to view it?
So the best way to view it is, again, the close conjunction, as we as astronomers call it, the conjunction when they're closest together is going to happen on December 21st. That's the winter solstice. It's a complete coincidence that it happens to fall on the winter solstice. But go outside on the 21st and right after sunset, around dusk up to, about an hour after sunset, and look very close to the horizon, looking sort of west-southwest, and you can't miss it. The planets, Jupiter and Saturn, will be the brightest points in the sky. And again, the cool thing about this, the really unusual thing, is how close together they're going to be. You only have a short period of time to catch it, and that'll be, about the hour after sunset.
All right, astrophysicist from NASA, Amber Strawn, joins us now. We are live on Facebook across the country. If you've got any questions for Amber, you can ask us there on Facebook. I'll relay them to Amber as we talk about this. Amber, we said almost 800 years ago. For you said it lines up like clockwork, but it's still got to be special to see these opportunities present themselves during your lifetime. Talk about that clock, and when you circle it on your calendar going, okay, this was 1226, it's 2020 now, I'm going to get to witness this.
Yeah, so this really is a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. The planets line up fairly close together, Jupiter and Saturn, about every 20 years, but they haven't been this close together, like you said, in 800 years. And so the next time they'll be this close together, and even not quite this close, will be about 60 years from now. So for those of us that will get to witness this event, it'll be the only time we do, most likely. So yeah, it's just a great chance to go out and witness something beautiful and spectacular and once in a lifetime. And yeah, as you mentioned, this has been a rough year for a lot of us. 2020 hasn't been the best. But I think it's great that we get this beautiful once in a lifetime celestial event to sort of cap off this tumultuous year.
Do we need a telescope, or will we just be able to walk out and look in that direction and see it with our eyes?
The great thing about this is you don't need a telescope. You can see it with your own eyes. And the planets are going to be so close together that they're only going to be separated by a teeny tiny bit. So it'll be about the width of a dime held at arm's length. So they're going to be incredibly close together, much closer together than the full moon appears on the sky. So you don't need a telescope to see it. But if you do have a telescope, even a small telescope or binoculars, definitely point them at this conjunction because it's going to be awesome. You'll get to see both planets and some of their moons in one field of view of the telescope. So that almost never happens. So this will be a great time to pull out your binoculars and telescopes as well. But you don't need them. It'll be spectacular even just with your eyes.
What's the excitement level right now at NASA? And you work with the James Webb Space Telescope, so you're around telescopes, you're around looking at things in the sky. But there still has to be some excitement about this specific moment, December 21st, where we get to see this.
Yeah, there is. I mean, because most astronomers, well, I guess I should say, me as an astronomer, I use telescopes in space, like the Hubble Space Telescope, and some of the bigger telescopes on the ground to view things that are very, very far away. But almost all of us astronomers, at heart, we still love the night sky, just to go out and look up at the night sky. I grew up in rural Arkansas, middle of nowhere, and the reason I became an astronomer was because that night sky was so beautiful. So I was captivated by the rural night sky as a young kid. And so most of us hold the night sky close to our hearts as astronomers now, even though a lot of what we're looking at requires telescopes.
All right, if you're just now joining us here on News Nation Now, we are across the country live on Facebook and our website, joined by Amber Strawn, who is an astrophysicist at NASA. Amber, talking about the Christmas star, and I know you guys work with calendars, you work with, like you said, this happens ever so often, but the special moment is still here, and the hope that it provides. And I don't know if you want to dive into the hope that it provides. You mentioned how bad 2020 has been for a lot of us. But there is a hope that we have something that is called the Bethlehem star or the Christmas star that's right in front of us this year.
Absolutely. I mean, I think humans for centuries have derived a sense of hope and wonder from the night sky. And this event just happens to be, this really special event, once in a lifetime sort of thing, where we can go outside, we can look up in the sky.
And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh.